Alwyn Sweetman was dependable and good, did his duty like a constable should. When the fire rained down from the November sky, many people in his hometown died. Now Alwyn did the best that he could, digging in the rubble where the pup once stood. There was times that night he was on his knees, praying, Lord, spare me, won't you spare me, Lord, please. And time takes it away, a little bit further every day, but time could never disguise the pain that reigned from the November sky. Eric Holt, just 9 years old, lying in a shelter, his eyes to behold, tracer arcing into the night sky. Landmine falling took his daddy's life, and time takes it away, a little bit further every day, but time could never disguise the pain that reigned from the November sky. In a farmhouse on the edge of town, firestorm raging all around. Little Valerie cried, why, God, why? As St. Michael's lit the Coventry sky. And time takes it away, a little bit further every day, but time could never disguise the pain that reigned from the November sky. From the ashes of that old town, there rose a spirit of world renown, and that spirit, it'll never die. Still we remember that November sky. Yes, we still remember that November sky.
Diesmal geht es gegen das Zentrum der englischen Rüstungsindustrie. Das Ziel heißt Coventry. Es gilt, Vergeltung zu üben für den Angriff der englischen Flieger auf nicht-militärische Ziele in München. Die englische Flak ist auf dem Posten. Ein wahrer Feuerhagel prasselt uns entgegen, aber ungehindert geht es weiter. Über Coventry. Der Bombenschütze löst die ersten Bomben. Unten ist bereits die erste Wirkung zu erkennen. Die Brände werden immer zahlreicher und das ist erst der Anfang. Immer neue Einschläge blitzen auf. Über 500.000 Kilogramm Bomben wurden in einer einzigen Nacht über Coventry abgeworfen. Führende amerikanische Blätter schrieben, Coventry sei dem Erdboden gleichgemacht worden. Mr. Churchill aber faselt immer noch von der Unbezwingbarkeit seiner Royal Air Force.
More than in any other recent conflict, the Second World War brought misery not just to the armed combatants, but also to civilian populations. And among those that suffered most were the people of Coventry. Their city was the target of bombing raids throughout the war, but November 1940, known as the Coventry Blitz, saw attacks of the greatest ferocity, leading to the highest casualties. The German code name for the attack was Moonlight Sonata. This was chosen because the raids were planned for clear, moonlit nights that would give the bombers best visibility for finding their targets, and at the same time minimize the threat from British fighter planes and anti-aircraft fire. The worst night, the 14th of November, was clear and with a full moon. Ideal conditions for the 449 bombers that, according to the Nazi claims, dropped 30,000 incendiaries and 500 tons of high explosives onto Coventry. On that night, over 500 civilians died. The exact figures will never be known, as many bodies could not be recovered from the remains of the collapsed and burning buildings. Those who survived the Blitz also suffered, many still being seriously affected more than 60 years later. These are some of their recollections.
On that particular night, November the 10th, it was a frosty night, cold, but very, very clear. And I had the lone bomber come over, straight over, top of Airshill Common. Within half an hour later, I went out to the front, put my home guard coat on. I said, look down the road, you'll see what's happened. The Elvis was all on fire. Bloody great flame, sheet of flames it was.
Well, Phyllis Smith was my brother-in-law's sister, and Arthur Smith was my brother-in-law's father. They were both killed in the air raid shelter, Phyllis was, at the age of 28. And Arthur Smith was dug from the rubble in the shelter, taken to Coventry and Warwickshire Hospital by ambulance, but unfortunately a bomb dropped on the ambulance, which was a direct hit, and killed all the crew and Arthur Smith at the age of 60.
It was good fortune that I am here today, because at the height of the Blitz, my father, in his wisdom, decided that the safest place for us to be during the raids was under the stairs. We were offered air raid shelters from various people, like Anderson shelters for the garden, which was just simply a corrugated arch with soil on top. Really, it was a very fortunate decision by my father, because lying under the stairs, we heard the bomb come down and demolish half the house and the garden complete. If we'd had this Anderson shelter, I wouldn't be here today.
I was 18 when the Blitz started, and that night it was just as though the German bombers was following us home. So from then on we never went out again. We went to the shelters practically every night. My dad and me, we used to get ready, all our old clothes on, shut the dog in the cupboard, and we'd go down the shelter. That was every night of the week. We did that for weeks and weeks. And then the November Blitz, we were in the shelter, and it was like there's hundreds of planes going out. We stood outside watching them going over. The planes going over. And we kept saying, somebody's going to get it today, somebody's going to get it. And of course it was us, we got it. And somebody came down and she said to me, it's no good you going up, she said, your house is completely gone. Well, we just didn't believe her. And when we got up, we just didn't know where it was, because everything, it was as though the bomb had started at the top and gone all the way down. And we started to look for the dog, because we'd shut her in the house, but we couldn't find her. We just had nothing. Everything was gone in the bombing.
June, my 12-year-old sister at that time, was having piano lessons with two maiden ladies who begged her to stay with them.
in their Morrison shelter. But June came home, how we don't know, in the middle of a heavy blitz, and yet the two ladies died from a direct hit.
And the lone aircraft kept coming over, not in droves, in ones, and they were selecting the targets. They got the women in the shelter, all the ladies and the women in the shelter, and the men was out on patrol. And at 1:30, Mr. Tilley came to me. He said, "I better go back home, Arthur." He says, "and have a look, see if the wife's all right." We went back from Bristol Road to Broomfield Road, and the house had gone, and the shop next door. Christ almighty, said I've we better try and move some of the rubble. Couldn't do it. He found her dead under the staircase.
I was about 9 years old at the time of the Blitz, and one particular story which stands out very much in my mind was the night that a landmine dropped in the allotments at the rear of the houses. And all of a sudden there was this tremendous explosion, and the blast sent all the glass from the back kitchen in over Dad and the next door neighbour. He was pulling bits of glass from his coat pocket for months afterwards. The blast also took the top half of the door between the kitchen and the front room halfway up, and we never did find the top half.
In 1940 I was 11 years old. I was in the house with my mum, my dad, my sister, and we received a direct hit by a bomb. We were buried, and I woke up trying to claw at the rubble that was all around me, horrible smell in my mouth, and horrible. And to this day I can't go by a derelict building without I smell this awful smell. I was trying to shout, and I heard my father say, "That's my little nipper." And that was the last words I ever heard him say. He died during the night from his injuries. My lovely mum didn't survive the burial. She was dead when they rescued her. I don't know how long I was buried, quite a long while I think, because they had to tunnel in and drag me out because my legs were broken, and every time they tried to uncover me, everything was falling in again on top of us. Eventually they did tunnel in and drag me out. It was wonderful to just see all the black faces of the rescuers, the tin helmets and the black faces of them, and such a relief. And it was so funny. To this day I remember saying to them, "Don't dirty my hair, I've just had it washed." Kept asking where my mum and dad were, and I wasn't told for quite a long time. And of course when I did, it was a big shock. 11 years old, no mum, no dad.
On November the 14th, 1940, I was aged 14 when the landmine landed on the substation next door to the bungalow near the Daimler Works. There was a flash of light, and that's basically all I can remember. Before the results of the blast had produced their damage on the bungalow. And as far as I was concerned, it was oblivion, or it was the end of the world. My mother was sitting next to me, and unfortunately she was killed after the landmine exploded.
At the particular time, the army had been forced to leave France, and they brought no equipment back with them, see? And they'd put these men on guard duty in Coventry. And what was they doing? Helping themselves out of jewellers' shops, rings. That's the way it goes.
Dear Sir, I'm sending you back these coins which I've carried around in my possession since 1941. I was sent to Coventry to do demolition and clearance work after the heavy raids with the army. It was while we were working on the fruit and vegetable market that I came across these coins in an OXO tin. I realise now how indifferent I was to the suffering and loss of your city of Coventry when I was there amongst the ruins of buildings. To search for buried goods was more concern to us than the keeping of fatherless children and the deep mourning of a stricken city. I realise in myself how far short I came to what I should be. I will sign myself a repented sinner.
There was a tremendous roar, and as we looked round, we saw a Heinkel 111 flying up Beak Avenue. It could have only been about 400 foot, and Mum grabbed us all into the hedge because we'd heard stories of German aircrew firing at civilians. This he didn't do. The plane must have only been about 500 foot, and it roared off up the street, and then there was this almighty crash, and the sky lit up in front of us, and this plane had dropped all its bombs on Wallace Road, Radford. And one of the kids who lived in that street next morning came to school, and he got blobs of white all over his hair. It had changed colour.
And when I got past where the new cathedral is now, to the old cathedral, I couldn't walk on the pavements. They was red hot. And the fire hoses were all laying strewn all over the place, flat, no water.
A thing with incendiary bombs, which the Germans dropped quite a lot of. One dropped through the roof of a house further up the road, straight into the bath. And with the heat, which was tremendous, it welded itself to the bath. And the lady and the gentleman from that house had baths with the incendiary bomb for many years afterwards, till it was replaced.
What upset me most was during the big raid on Coventry, the number of people, men and women, pouring up Broomfield Road, because it's a long climb, to get to Talia Woods. They thought by getting into the woods they'd be protected. And they were carrying blankets and wheeling chairs full of blankets into the woods.
Our worst sight was the Warden's Post opposite Old Church Road in Posel Road, which was it was a nerve centre for the area. All wardens and personnel there were killed. We worked there all day clearing the bodies up till the evening. When Mr. Jewison, who was in charge of the depot, refused to take any more, we had to get inside the mortuary and pick the bodies up and lace them over each other to get the bodies in. A chap, he was a warden, we had a shower of incendiary bombs come, and they all dropped down, and he heard them coming. He ducked, and as he went down, one got underneath him and it exploded and blew him apart. And then we had to pick the bits up and get them back in the depot.
In addition to the members of the armed forces who died defending Coventry, 5,500 families were evacuated, but many others chose to remain. The raids in November 1940 alone destroyed an estimated 35% of Coventry's buildings. Throughout the Second World War, over 2,000 of Coventry's citizens were killed by enemy action. Many died far away in the armed forces, and others in Coventry's civil defence, some as young as 14. The majority, however, were civilians who died either in their homes or workplaces, or while seeking safety in air raid shelters.
That's the day I can remember when it never goes out my mind. It's with me night and day.
Sometime later my brother Vernon arrived home from work, and he was covered with human remains. He'd been taking shelter in an alleyway opposite a bus queue on which a bomb had dropped. Vernon was never the same again.
Alwyn Sweetman was dependable and good, did his duty like a constable should. When the fire rained down from the November sky, many people in his hometown died. Now Alwyn did the best that he could, digging in the rubble where the pup once stood. There was times that night he was on his knees, praying, Lord, spare me, won't you spare me, Lord, please. And time takes it away a little bit further every day, but time could never disguise the pain that reigned from the November sky. Eric Holt, just 9 years old, lying in a shelter, his eyes to behold, tracer arcing into the night sky. Landmine falling took his daddy's life, and time takes it away a little bit further every day, but time could never disguise the pain that reigned from the November sky. In a farmhouse on the edge of town, firestorm raging all around. Little Valerie cried, why, God, why? As St. Michael's lit the Coventry sky, and time takes it away a little bit further every day, but time could never disguise the pain that reigned from the November sky. From the ashes of that old town there rose a spirit of world renown, and that spirit, it'll never die. Still we remember that November sky. Yes, we still remember that November sky.
My name is Harry Green. I was born in Banbury in 1933. My father worked for a local aluminium company in Banbury, and during the war he was quite often between Banbury and Coventry, flitting backwards and forwards on business work, which I never understood because I was only a kid when the bombing started in Coventry, and I was brought to Coventry many times during the war, and I can't remember some of the things, but I can remember some things very vividly. The first thing I really remember was when one evening we was in Banbury and our house had a landing window which faced towards Coventry. Now, Banbury being approximately 28 miles from Coventry, my father came and got me out of bed, and he took me to this landing window and he pointed out. He was holding me in his arms. My mother was standing by the side of him with tears running down her face, and my father said to me, "Look," and he pointed out at this window, went, "There, see that glow in the sky? That is not the sun, that is Coventry burning." And I can still see that in my mind's eye now, just like a sunset, only much more horrific, because even at my tender age then, which would make me about, what, 7, 8, as about then. And I was not at all afraid because I didn't realise that it was a war which was a war to end wars.
My name is Joan Wells. I was born in Crumlin in Wales in 1933. My father was a miner in Wales, but he had to come to Coventry because of his ill health. And I lived in Eastcotes, in Tile Hill at the time. And I remember the Blitz vividly. I used to sit under the stairs in my house, in my parents' house, shaking like a leaf all the way through the night. And when the bombs did stop dropping, my father got me from under the stairs and said to me, "Come and look at this." I stood on the back doorstep and I could see the whole of Coventry on fire. You could even feel the heat from the fire.
My name's Derek Schooler. I was 5 when the war broke out, and somebody decided that we would have to be evacuated to Leamington. So we all boarded these double-decker corporation buses and headed for Leamington. I remember somebody gave us a banana each to eat. I think that was about the last banana we had for about the next 7 or 8 years. Anyway, we arrived at Leamington and this school playground, and we all sat around on this wall, and different people were saying, "Oh, I'll have this one and I'll have that one." Anyway, me and another lad were selected by this family. We went to their house. They were a good family, good Christian family, and anyway, one night they woke me up in the middle of the night, and I heard one of them say, "Well, we'd better show him what's happening in case anything's happened to his parents." So they took me to the bedroom window and showed me, you could see Coventry burning, the big red glow in the sky. And you could hear the bombers going off and the German planes going over. Anyway, that must have been the night of the Blitz. But I remember coming home to Coventry a couple of weekends later, and all the windows in the houses were blown out, and tiles and glass all in the street, crunching through tiles. As the houses backed onto each other, and there's a massive bomb crater in the back gardens, and half full of water and dead cats in it and everything.
On the night of the Blitz, there was just my father and I at home. When he realised what may be happening, he took me across the road to my friend's house, who I've known all my life, and I still speak with her every week. She lives in Devon. And I went to their house and I sat on the floor in the living room all through the Blitz. And he was doing the old soldier act, wandering round, seeing if he could help anyone, particularly the elderly. After the Blitz, I went back home and he had seen all that had happened, been into the city, quite shocked and annoyed and couldn't believe that anyone dare bomb our cathedral. And we came home and there was no water, no gas, no electricity, but we were alive, so we were very grateful for that.
We got evacuated, told to come out of our Anderson shelter. They once again took us to the shelters on Quinton Pool. We emerged from those shelters at 6 o'clock in the morning, and if anybody's seen the evening sky last night, I'm talking now 2007, the red sky, it reminded us then. From there, it was a brilliant red from the burning fires in the city centre. We made our way home. There was no gas, no electricity, no water. All those had been gone through the bombing. Anyway, being a venturous lad as I was, I took my bike and went up to the city centre just to see what the damage was. I had to carry my bike, as you can imagine, through the city centre. I went to make my way down Hertford Street, and the copper there said, "You can't go down there, son, there's 2 unexploded bombs." So I did. I went down Hertford Street and viewed the damage, and that was one of those instances that I did witness the whole damage in the city centre in Broadgate that morning. And believe you me, it lives with me to this day still.
My memory is of my mum and dad had a big garden, and we had an Anderson shelter at the end of the garden. And I remember that in the night they used to wake me up and take me to the shelter, and they used to put on the siren suit, which they said, and this was a zipper suit with, you put your legs in and your arms and you had a hood on. And I can remember vividly them saying, "Come on, it's time to get up and get your siren suit on," and we're going to the shelter. And I would hear the sirens go, and the shelter was damp and wet, and I just remember the smell and the feeling of it, although I was young. And it just remains with me forever, and I can hear the droning of the planes going overhead, and then the all clear sounding, and they would lift me up, and I forever think of these little zipper suits the children have as a siren suit, and that's my memories.
We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through, just like you always do, till the blue skies drive the dark clouds far away.
Hello and welcome to my video about the Coventry Blitz. It was a terrible time in history which should never be forgotten. Hope you like my video.
Here we are, Coventry Cathedral. This is the old cathedral. My great-granddad fought in the Second World War before he went to the other side of the world to fight against the Japanese in Burma. He lived in Coventry. We all know Coventry as being our nearest city, just a few miles away. But in 1940, Coventry was attacked by the Germans, and it was really bad. That night, 1940, 14th of November, that night is now known as the Coventry Blitz. The reason why I'm here today at Coventry Cathedral is because I am going to tell you a bit about the devastating Coventry Blitz. Coventry was known for the amount of factories it had, making ammunition and planes for the war. So the Germans thought that they should get rid of them once and for all.
On the 14th of November in 1940, 515 German bombers set off from occupied France. The mission to destroy Coventry. They dropped thousands of bombs onto Coventry all through the night.
It was at 8 o'clock that evening when Coventry Cathedral was first hit. More bombs quickly followed, and soon the cathedral was engulfed in flames. Around 600 people were killed in Coventry that night, and another 1,000 were injured. Homes were destroyed, and 2/3 of the city's buildings were damaged. My great-granddad had just come out of the theatre when the bombs started raining down. He said, "All hell let loose within seconds. A continuous deafening sound of exploding bombs, the bursting of water and gas pipes, buildings collapsing, and fires raging in every direction will never be forgotten."
Here is a poem by my great-granddad called Immortal Memory. It happened one November night, when our city stood still in full moonlight. The sirens wailed, the whistles blew, to us the sounds were far from new. The drone planes made one lock up, they seemed to whisper, how's your luck? A Nazi bomb came screaming down, an eerie, sickly sort of sound. The warden's voice was heard by all, but many people were seen to fall. The AA guns began to fire, which made the enemy planes go higher. The city blazed and houses fell. It was indeed a living hell. The whistling of downward bombs could not cut the shelter songs. Landmines were sailing down to earth, some hitting buildings, others just turf. Churches and hospitals were all getting hit. The Nazis were certainly doing their bit. The shelters were standing up to the test, Anderson's, home-built ones, and the rest. Some of our factories received few hits, others were gutted and blown to bits. Men at the searchlights were kept very busy, trying their hardest to get the pilots dizzy. Dogs in the streets howled in despair. Even they needed some sort of care. The blitz continued all through the night and never ceased until the signs of light. At long last, dawn appeared, but what we saw brought forth a tear. Part of the city we loved before had completely vanished for evermore. Women and children, as well as men, had perished in that night of hell. Survivors of the raid will not forget those Nazi bombers, you can bet. The heroes who died in that terrible blitz will live forever in our midst. But they won't be forgotten, as you will see, these gallant citizens of Coventry.
On the highest prominence of the cemetery of Coventry, 172 murdered people are laid to rest. As family mourners file to the one great grave and bow their heads in prayer, bestial raiders drone overhead in this hour of their deepest sorrow. But none of them raise their eyes to this grim reminder of the unholy massacre. This is no place where evil may intrude. Coventry mourns. How shall we rank thee upon glory's page, but by the name of martyr? This tragic scene once more brings home to us the necessity for exterminating the perpetrators. It is a clarion call to the youth of Britain to join the noble band of flying men who will avenge this awful catastrophe.